Hey y'all, I'm just gonna jump on here real quick and just make a really short video. I just wanted to follow up with my original video that I did about my testimony, which I kind of covered a lot of things in that. And so now I'm just gonna kind of go backwards and break each one of those topics that I talked about in the initial video and just kind of tackle them one by one. When I had my abortion at 17 years old, and I was a junior in high school, and I found out I was pregnant, and like most 17-year-olds, wasn't paying attention to my cycle. I was very active in high school. I was involved in after-school activities, and you know how that goes. So you have practice after school, and then we had games, and I was just consumed in my life like a 17-year-old should be. And I wasn't really paying attention to my growing belly. And my best friend Keisha was over, and she made a comment about my stomach looking a little pudgy in a shirt that I had on. I had on a sweatshirt. And we kind of laughed about it and joked and, went on by our way. And the next day, I was looking in the mirror at my stomach, and I said, it was a little, pudge there. I mean, I was 110 pounds, so I was relatively small. So, that was noticeable. And that's when I started thinking like, okay, well, when did I have my last period? And I couldn't think of when I had my last period. So my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, we decided, we went to Planned Parenthood with my best friend Keisha and her boyfriend, a bunch of kids, not knowing what we were doing. Went to Planned Parenthood, took a pregnancy test, found that I was pregnant. And to be honest with you, I don't remember a whole lot. Like, I don't remember if they did an ultrasound. I don't remember how they determined how far along I was, other than my last menstrual cycle. And so I had that dreaded conversation with my mother. I dare not say anything to my dad. I was just too embarrassed. I adored my father. But, a typical daddy's girl, I just was embarrassed to go and tell him that. So I told my mom, and I'm sure she was upset, but she kind of held it together during that time when she was speaking to me. And I remember vividly, it's funny how I can't remember some things, but other things I can remember. But she asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, I want to have this baby. I want to have my baby, Gosh, looking back on it now, I'm thinking, oh, how immature I was. But I really thought that it was going to be cool. It was going to be cool, and I loved him and he loved me, and we were going to have this baby. And at the time, I had a friend in high school who was pregnant, and she was a pom-pom as well. And I would see her and her boyfriend walking around and holding hands. I just thought, oh, that's just the cutest thing, and that's what I thought was, was going to happen with me. Then, I don't know, about a week or so had gone by, and my mom just very matter-of-factly said, yeah, I made you an appointment at the clinic. You're going to get your abortion. I don't know, she said tomorrow, or I don't know how far out it was, but I do remember her saying that we had to get it done then because I was going to be too far along. I must have been about 12 weeks or close to 12 weeks, I'm assuming. I remember very little about the abortion. I remember going in, I remember a lady talking to me and asking me if this is what I wanted to do. And I don't think that I thought I had a choice. I don't know, maybe I didn't have a choice at that time because I was a minor. I don't know what the laws were. You're talking about almost 40 years ago. I don't know what the laws were back then, but I dare not say, that I didn't want to go through with the abortion. So I just said, yeah. And I remember being in a room. I remember a suction machine. I remember feeling some cramping. It wasn't anything serious. And I don't even know if they gave me sedation medication or not. I ironically went on to work at Planned Parenthood. Never thought that that's where I would have ended up in my nursing career. I mean, for those of you that don't know, I was a hairstylist for 20 years. And I did that mainly because, my number one focus was my kids. And so I chose to be a hairstylist so that I could be flexible with my kids' schedule. So nursing is my second career. And I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to help people. And, you know, that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I was thinking, but I know one thing, I never thought that I would end up working at Planned Parenthood. I don't know why, it just wasn't on my radar. But I had always said I wanted to do women's health and I wanted to be in a clinic environment. And so when I started working at Planned Parenthood, I started going back and asking my mom questions like, hey, you know, did they give me sedation? Do you remember, you know, them doing an ultrasound on me? Do you remember, you know? And she didn't remember either. So it was like, gosh, I wish I, you know, now in hindsight, wish I would have remembered those things. But what I will tell you that I do remember, and what has affected me to this day is, you know, like I said in my previous video, working at Planned Parenthood exposed me to my own biases around abortion. And also it exposed me to what people are going through when they have to come in and get an abortion. I thought that I was the only one that felt the way that I did. For all those years, I never told anybody that I had an abortion. My husband knew, my mom knew, his mom knew, and like my best friend Keisha knew, but my kids didn't know, you know, because for one, we raised them in a Christian household. So it was no sex before marriage. So for me to then admit to them that I had had an abortion meant that I'm letting them know, yeah, well, your mom and your dad. It would have been different if their how do I say it? If their dad wouldn't have been my boyfriend at the time. It was, you know, embarrassing to go to your kids and say, yeah, I know we were telling you guys this, but actually we were getting it on. And not only were we getting it on, you know, I got pregnant. So I lived with that hurt, one, because, you know, I would often go through this thing in my mind of, you know, why did these 5 kids get to be here and this baby didn't? You know, like it was almost like I loved them more than I loved that baby. And so I struggled with that. I struggle with the whole, am I going to hell thing? You know, the common thing that we normally hear. Will I be forgiven for what I did? And then also, you know, the grief, because it is a loss, you know, regardless of whether I was 17 and didn't know what I was doing. It was still a part of me. That baby was still a part of me. And actually, now that I think about it, I need to ask that baby to forgive me. It wasn't a thing where it was like, you know, that baby didn't mean as much to me as my other kids do. And I also was angry at my mom for a lot of years, because I didn't understand why she, you know, made that decision for me, or, you know, didn't allow me to live out what I felt as though I wanted to do for my life. Of course, since now that I'm an adult and I've evolved and I'm older, I realized that, like most parents, you're just doing the best that you know to do for your kids. And, you know, I actually went back and apologized to my mom for, you know, hating her for that, because I realized, you know, with my own kids who are grown now, that we can do as much as we want to do or that we think is right for them. But at the end of the day, they're going to still have something to say. They still going to have something to say about, well, you didn't do this for me, or you didn't do that, or I wish I would have had this, or whatever. You just can't win. It's not going to be a perfect situation. You know, I apologize to my mom, because at that time, she was just trying to make the best decision for her 17-year-old daughter, who she wanted to finish high school. She wanted me to go on to college. She wanted me to have a life. And so that was what she deemed as being, you know, the best thing for me. I did have to go through all of that grieving process. And like I said, I carried that all the way into my adulthood. And it wasn't until I started working at Planned Parenthood that I got free from that. I got free from that bondage, because the patients that we had that were coming through the door were experiencing some of those same emotions, and some of them were in worse situations. You know, I would find myself in my purpose, finally, even as a nurse. I mean, most people that I talk to, I will say I'm an advocate first and a nurse second. And I say that because I want to be in a position to make change for abortion care, reproductive rights, and just what's right and wrong, in general, of how we treat people. Even in healthcare, I mean, I deal with that. I see it all the time. I've seen it the whole time I've been a nurse, where, some nurses, I'm not going to say all, but some nurses got into this business for the wrong reasons. It's not about patient care. It was about either this is a steady career, nurses are looked at to be, trustworthy and, dependable and hard workers, and all that stuff is true. But at the heart of it, we should be compassionate, and we should be advocating for our patients on all levels. And so for me, that was the best part about my job, was to hold my patient's hand and let them know, and to even share with them my personal story. And then that's when I got free, really free from that bondage that I had been carrying for almost 40 years of that abortion. I had to talk to that 17-year-old girl inside of myself and say, you're treating your patients with all this compassion, and you're holding their hand, and you're wiping their tears, and you're putting on their clothes, and you're letting them know that this moment in time does not define the rest of their life. And but yet you're not extending that same grace to yourself. So once that clicked in my brain, I sat my kids down and I said, listen, I have something that I need to tell you. And their reaction, I'm not going to say it shocked me, because I have some really great kids, but their reaction was, Mommy, oh my gosh, like, why didn't you tell us? Like, you've been living with this all this time and you didn't tell us this? And then I explained to them why. And I think they were more hurt than anything that I had been carrying around that hurt, and that I, been carrying it around and didn't share it with them. And so it was at that moment that I said, it is my life's purpose. I know this is what God has called me to do, is that I don't want, if I can help it, any other person to ever go through that experience, one, alone, and two, feeling like they are not worthy because they got an abortion. 3, that they are carrying around that stigma for as long as I did. And, my prayer in the morning would always be, every morning, God, allow someone today to see God through me, through my actions. Because we can walk around all day toting a Bible, or quoting Bible scriptures. And, but the Bible does say that you will know them by their fruit. So my prayer is always that I don't want to be a Bible-toting Christian. I want to be someone that people see me and say, there's something different about her. Or I see her light, without me having to walk around shouting from the rooftops that I'm a Christian and you're going to go to hell because you had an abortion, or, whatever they're out there shouting these days. But I remember my dad telling me, you get more bees with honey than with vinegar. My approach is that God loves people and I love people. And more than just loving people, I'm super, super compassionate about reproductive health. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like their life is over because they had an abortion. Nor do I want it, abortion bans to be put on people where, policymakers, abortion is not black and white. I mean, that's the reality of it. Abortion is not black and white. People get abortions for various reasons. Some people, they wanted to have, this baby. They planned for it, and then they find out there's no fetal heart tones, meaning there's no heartbeat, or whatever the situation is. I don't feel like that's my business. Nor should it be your business. Nor should it be policymakers' business. My job is to show love and compassion and to make sure that you heal from the grief that you feel from your abortion as much as possible in a safe environment, that you feel safe to share those feelings, and then you then will go on and help the next person, which is why, you know, the Be at Peace abortion doula program is so important. I mean, having doulas in the health center, we hear it time and time again, that it makes patients feel that like they're not alone. So to have somebody there that is strictly focused on you throughout this entire process is why I do the abortion doula program, and train people to go out and to offer this service, this specialized service, because it's not a birthing situation. You know, in most cases, a birthing doula, in most cases, that's like a happy occasion, right? I mean, we're celebrating that this life is coming into the world. Well, not saying all patients who have abortions feel, you know, sad about it, but I would venture out to say that even if you made this decision to have an abortion because it just isn't the right time for you, or you actually may feel relieved, and we've had patients that have said, I feel relieved that it's over with. That can mean a lot of things. It can mean you had anxiety leading up to it and you're just glad that it's over with. It can mean that, you know, this was a situation where you were sexually assaulted, and this pregnancy is a result of that, and now you're relieved, you know, to be done with that. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not our job to define, you know, anything about anybody's emotions. It's not our job to do that. Our only job, I feel, is, like I said, to love people and to meet people where they are. So that's all I got for y'all today. Just, you know, talking about my personal experience with abortion, my personal experience with my abortion, how I felt about it, how I overcame it, and what I'm doing about it going forward to make sure that no one else feels that way ever again. I hope you enjoyed the video. Look forward to talking about more topics with you around the topic. And I hope that you don't just watch the video, but that you also subscribe. Peace and blessings to you all, and show some gratitude today. I'm grateful that I have a job. I'm grateful that I have a car. I'm grateful that I have food to eat. And in Arizona, it is 115 degrees right now. So I am thankful for air conditioning. I'm thankful for my family and that all my children are safe. And I'm thankful for all of you. And I'm thankful for hopefully having an opportunity to work with you in the future. Peace.